Mike, thanks for being on, man. I appreciate you. I know you're coming from camp right now. Drove all the way down the mountain just to be here, so I appreciate you coming
Yeah, man.
and just rocking with me. So I'm excited, man. The way we met, I'll never forget. I'm just gonna tell a story real quick because man, it was really cool. We met in Praise Chapel, Whittier. We did worship that night. Andrea, they hit us up to do worship and stuff. We were there. I'll never forget. You were out in the crowd and stuff. You were loud, bro. We were going. I was like, "Who is that guy, man? He's loud and just like cheering us on and just like encouraging us in worship and stuff." And then after, I'll never forget. You came up to us, you're like, "Where are you guys from?" Like you told Andrea, like, "Man, you're fire, blah blah." And it was cool. We just connected and stuff. And then and that's when I remember, I never forget, I told my dad later on, like, yeah, there was this black dude there. Like, dude, he hit us up after. Like, we got to connect with him. He's cool. He does music. You didn't rap that day, but you were just like, I rap. I do music. You're telling me. So I told my dad. And then I don't know how, somehow we figured out, like, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, I know who he is." And I was like, "No, you don't." Like, dude, you do not know who Mike is. Like, I was like, "Explain to him." He's like, "Yeah, I know him. I went to school with him." I was like, "No, you didn't." And I was confused. I didn't know he meant Bible school. And finally, it broke it down. I was like, "No, this guy's young. You did not go to school with this guy." And then he hit me, and then he told me, like, no, trust me. Boom, I showed him the picture, and he's like, "That's Mike. Look at our messages." He just pulls up his Facebook messages, and sure enough, he's right there. So we have a crazy history and stuff. We're all intertwined and stuff. But I want the people to get to know you, man. So throw us way back. I want to start with your early life. You do music, you're in ministry right now, you're doing a lot of amazing things, but throw us way back, start from the beginning, where you grew up, and just kind of your journey early on.
Yeah, man. So before I even get there, just kind of going back to your dad just during the time, because I met your dad in Bible college, and he was just such a massive encouragement to me. Like, I loved sitting next to him, learning from him, gaining wisdom and knowledge of the truth of the scriptures. And he interpreted some dreams for me, and really just became someone that I was able to admire and look forward to, like, being around, sitting next to, learning from. And so for me, it was like a double blessing because I had my professors that I was getting all this like Bible and theology from, but then I was getting like spiritual formation just from like being friends with your dad. And so your dad's dope. So shout out to your dad. He's super awesome.
That's cool, man. Yeah, he loves interpreting dreams. Everyone that always see, like, they always like, "I got dreams for him." Even now, he loves interpreting dreams. So that's so crazy. You guys connected, man. That's wild. I still trip out about that. That's crazy. You at Latin Bible school.
Yeah, dude.
That's wild, man.
Only
That's
black
cool.
person there.
Speak on it. That's funny, man. That's cool. But yeah, man, throw us way back, man. Where'd you grow up? How was it kind of growing up and stuff?
Yeah, dude. So I tell people I have the standard black guy story. I grew up in South Central LA. Grew up surrounded by gangs.
What streets, bro? Give us the streets. Give us a
So
breakdown.
60th and Normandy. So like right down the street from like the Slauson swap meet. If you know where that's
So
at.
you're in 60s territory
Yeah.
for sure.
So I was on 60th place, and what was interesting is that like on that particular like side of town where I was at, if you're on one side of the street, it's like hardcore Bloods and everything. And like literally, like I had friends that lived just like on the other side of the block, and it was like Crips. And so like I had friends that could never like come to like my side of the street because I was on the Blood side. And so like to hang out with friends, I had to like be somewhere else or go on another side or whatever it was, meet them somewhere and stuff like that. So it was an interesting like environment to live in. Growing up with everyone was either gang banging, in and out of jail, seeing guns and drugs all the time. Like that was just normal stuff. Waking up to gunshots, and not even necessarily for the purpose of like someone being like harmed, but like just because they could, hey, like good morning, I'm in a good mood, I'm gonna start shooting up guns and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that. Like that was just the norm.
Is this like the 90s or what? Where
Yeah,
was this?
yeah. So I'm 28, so I was born in '94, so we're talking like late '90s, early 2000s. Was the era that I came up in, and so gang banging was still very prevalent for me growing up. And so I grew up in South Central, and didn't have a good relationship with my dad at all, like at all. And so my mom was raising myself and raising my sister, and who's 9 years older than me. And then by the time I was 8, I started getting Banged on all the time. So the area where I grew up in, like they start recruiting you into gangs by the time you're about 7, 8 years old.
Man, it's
And
crazy.
so by the time I was 8, it was just a regular thing for me to get followed by gangs, get questioned by gangs, just all that kind of stuff. And so, and to make matters worse, like because I didn't have like a good relationship with like my dad and stuff, like I always looked angry. So I was a kid who had a mad dog face everywhere I went every single day. Cause I was just an angry kid. Like I was happy, but I had like a lot of like stored in anger, and so I always looked mean. And so imagine Michael, like 8 years old, cornrows, baggy white tee with some Rockaware jeans, and just like mad looking everywhere I went. And like in that time, like that was something that was attractive to gangs. Like they wanted that because like I already looked the part.
Yeah.
And so yeah, man. So 8 years old, that stuff gets started, and 9 years old, it's continuing, and eventually my sister was about to have her first kid, and it was a boy. And so my mom was like, I don't want him growing up in this, and I don't want you to end up in this, because I had a lot of friends that were good kids. And by the time they're like 11, they're just like, they've completely transformed, like just completely transformed by the time they're like age 11.
That's crazy. I mean, if you just stop there, transform at age 11,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
wild.
Literally, like you can tell, like they're drinking, they're smoking, they're covered in red or blue or whatever gang they're in, and all that
That's
kind
like
of
what,
stuff.
fifth grade or something?
Yeah.
Like that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Like done with school, like all that stuff, man. So then we moved out and we moved to the South Bay area. So the Torrance, Hawthorne, Lawndale side of town, Redondo Beach, all that stuff. We ended up moving over there, and my mom's just like, yeah, like we got to change it. We got to switch it up. And so, yeah, man, ended up moving out of L.A. and moved to the South Bay side of L.A. County, and been there since now, actually.
Which is still pretty active, right? There's some areas over there as well too.
Some areas, yeah, but I'm on like now, like by God's grace, like I'm on the suburban side now.
Nice.
So yeah, so like where I'm at, it's well diverse. It's extremely safe. The only thing I have to deal with is just like racism from cops. Like if I'm out walking around, walking to 7-Eleven, to get like a candy bar at 2 a.m., like I might get pulled over or, handcuffed, get flashed by the cops, stuff like that. But it's more like racial stuff now versus like, danger and things like that in my neighborhood.
That's crazy. And that's where you went to high school and stuff? Where'd you go to high school at?
No, so I was actually homeschooled.
Oh, really?
Fun
You're a
fact,
homeschooler.
Yeah. So fun fact, dude, I was homeschooled my entire life. So I was born with a bleeding disorder called hemophilia. So I was born with hemophilia A, which is the most severe form of the disorder that you can be born with. And so back, like the 90s and the 2000s, it was still like in like the development phase, like medically. And so like doctors still like were doing like blood transfusions and stuff like that. The medication was still kind of hard to come across. And so when my mother was pregnant with me, the doctors was like, yo, like, because of the severity of his hemophilia, you are either going to have to quit your job and commit your life to like taking care of him and figure it out as you go, or you're gonna have to put him up for adoption.
Wow.
Like the level of hemophilia that I still currently have is like that bad.
What is that? What's the like, what's the,
So I bleed internally.
so if you get like hit or something, you automatically start bleeding or something?
Yeah,
or?
so it depends on how my body decides to respond to it. So there's times where like I can take like, I might, fall and trip down some stairs or something. And apart from being funny, like I could be okay. And then there's other times where like I might just stump my toe and my body just starts like bleeding, and it can just get really bad.
Wow.
So it really just depends like how my body like responds. But growing up in that time, especially living in LA, I became a target because I had to be home all the time. There's a lot of stuff I couldn't do. There's like a whole list of things you're never supposed to do. And just to like go outside and like watch birds or something, like I had to wear a helmet, elbow pads,
way.
and knee pads every single day of my life.
So you're not playing sports, you're not riding bikes, you're
I'm
not doing any
none
of that.
dude. Like I have to live in a bubble, like an absolute bubble.
Wow.
And because of that, I became a target. And so like kids started like bullying me, picking on me, and all that kind of stuff. I've always been like on the larger side, so it's like I could have easily defended myself. I just like didn't do it, you know. And so we had the reputation to be in the Christian family in the community, and then I was known as the kid with some like weird like illness or something like that. So I just became the target. So I would get bullied and get into fights and stuff. And then I remember one day there was a kid that was picking on me, and then another kid that was with him was like, "Yeah, man, do whatever. Like, he's not gonna do nothing. His family's Christian, and like he has some kind of like disease, so like you could do whatever." And after I heard that, I was probably like 7, 8 at the time, probably like 8, and he said that to me, and I was like, "I'm not doing this anymore." So I like, I'm sorry, God, but like I beat the crap out of
took
this
off on
kid.
him?
Like
Oh,
I
man.
like I went ham on this kid,
Dang.
and then after that, it just kind of became a thing to me. Just like I became the bully, and so then I started beating up kids, and it was wild. It was really
crazy.
wild, bro.
But that's like all that bottled stuff. It exploded. And you said you were a Christian family. So has your mom always been Christian? Always been in church, like growing up and stuff?
Yeah, dude. So my mom's mom's side of the family, like have a rich background in church ministry. Everyone is like a bishop, a choir director, a missionary. I grew up in a denomination called Church of God in Christ, Kojic for short. And my grandmother, I don't even remember her like title, but she had like this massive title within Kojic. My grandmother literally had keys. So this is in Kansas. So my family's from Kansas City, Kansas. And so my grandmother literally had keys to churches in other states because she's just like the man, you know, like the woman like within like our denomination.
Wow,
Yeah, so really rich ministry
history.
background, yeah.
for sure. That's crazy. And then so as you're going up, you're always in church, like Sundays and stuff like that.
Always in
But
church.
where were you at though? Were you really plugged into it? Were you kind of just like the kids? Like I was raised in church as well too. You know, sometimes you get into that and you're just like, oh, I just got to be here because of my parents. Or did you really feel like you had a relationship? I mean, you're young still, but what was your kind of relationship with them growing up with Christ? I guess with God.
Yeah, it's weird for me. So like when people say stuff like when you hear someone say like you know, like, when did you become a Christian? And they're like, oh, like, I was born Christian. And then people are like, oh, no, like, no one's born Christian. Like, I completely disagree with that. Like, I was born Christian. Like, God has never given me the option to, like, not live for him. I did do, like, my prayer repentance at, like, 9, but, like, I truly believe, like, I've been, like, saved my entire life. And I know that might wreck some people's theology, but that's genuinely how I feel. And so, like, you know, it was just kind of it was the cultural thing. I didn't think that much of it, but like I knew that like I love God. I wanted to do things with God, and I wanted to be part of His plan. And I also couldn't get rid of it because my entire life it had been prophesied over me by every single prophet that we ever met. Like, this young man's called to preach. This young man is going to lead the masses to Jesus. He's going to be a pastor. He's going to do all these things and lead all these people to the Lord and all this kind of stuff. So like,
Did you believe it though when you'd hear it?
well, because it was told so often. Like, I of course I did, because like no matter what church, what service, whatever we went to, some prophetic person seemed to always find me, and I'm 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old being told all this stuff. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like I guess that's gonna be my life, So
That's cool. Yeah. So then that's like, you're young and stuff. So then you're in high school, you're still in homeschooled, right? You're still getting homeschooled and stuff. And then what about after that? What about kind of, when did you start like the whole music thing? When did you know that you were going to start rapping? Was it early on too as well?
No. So music came to be part of my life much later on into my later teen years. So I always knew that I could rap. I just didn't do it because like my mom was like either gospel or like oldies, like Earth, Wind and Fire, like that kind of music. And then my sister was always listening to like 90s, like R&B and all that kind of stuff. And so like rap wasn't really part of like my upbringing. It was around me, living in LA. Everyone's, listening to NWA and, G Unit and all that kind of stuff. So I grew up around it, but No, I ended up, so I played basketball. As I got older, I was like, screw all these like hemophilia rules. Like, I'm just going to start breaking them. So eventually I broke every rule. So as I got older into like my preteen years, I started playing basketball. Was really good at like defense and like shooting threes. Was trash at everything else within basketball, but like I can D really
So
good
you got a
and I can
jumper.
shoot. Yeah, and I can shoot threes really well. I miss all free throws, but I can shoot a really good three. And so that ended up kind of becoming like my thing and my identity, and I was like, oh, I want to play for the Lakers and all that stuff. And then I ended up becoming a skateboarder. That's like a massive no for anyone with
Yeah, that's
hemophilia.
crazy.
I had to like hide that from my doctors and
Really?
stuff. Like it's that extreme. So ended up becoming a skateboarder. Then from skating,
But what are you doing in skating? Are you just doing like you're actually doing like tricks? Like you're just riding
that
around?
was the plan. So I'm getting into like street skating. So I'm slowly starting to go to parks and getting into just all the basics tricks and stuff. But
That's crazy.
it didn't last that long because during that same time, by now I'm like 14, and so it's like 2009, 2008, something like that. And I became a jerker. The jerk movement gets started.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So the jerk movement gets started. So I just fall in love with the jerk movement. So now I'm like, 15, wearing like bright color yellow skinny jeans and all
And
this
even with
stuff.
your disease that you have, like that's very like
Not
it's
supposed to
very
be dancing.
No,
Not supposed to be dancing. End up starting a dance crew. We became
Really?
super popular. End up launching 4 crews through that. Had about 40 kids in my house every Saturday by the time I'm like 15.
Wow.
We're getting thousands of views on YouTube. We're getting sponsors and free clothes and, lots of people checking us out. And eventually I started using that as a tool for ministry. So that was kind of like my introduction into ministry and sharing the gospel with other young people. Was that, I would do like a gospel message at like the end of each video, or like put a scripture at the end of each video, because the jerk move was like very like vulgar as far as the music and stuff goes. And so, we're going to these places. I'm dancing to like the most vulgar music, but then I'm like praying for kids like in the back afterwards and stuff like that. So
Yeah, that's
man.
crazy. So you never had like a real like falling away or like this prodigal son type of story that a lot of people have?
So my story is this. No, I was actually just talking to my friends about this. Was I didn't have a prodigal story. I just did all my dirt while being in the church. So I never walked away from God. I was just like doing all of my sin, all of my dirt, all of my filth while still like proclaiming the name of Jesus. Like I remember doing terrible things like having girls send me like inappropriate pictures and then offering them prayer like right afterwards because they're
No.
going through something
Man, that's
hard or
crazy.
whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just did all my dirt while like still proclaiming Christ. So I don't know which is worse, but
Yeah. No, but that's cool that you say that, because there's a lot of people that do that even now. They like hide behind that, like, oh, I'm in church, I'm good. But then it's like, you
Yeah.
don't know the full story, That's crazy. So going back as far as like the music and stuff, you said you're kind of rapping early on. You kind of can tell that you got something. When did you really know, like, I'm about to go crazy with this thing? When did it really hit?
yeah. Okay. So music became a thing probably around the time I was like 16, 17. I would be hanging out with my dance friends, and we'll be like walking around and just going to wherever, Taco Bell, whatever we about to go do. Taco Bell's like our hangout spot. So we're like
Nice.
walking to like the local Taco Bell that's like 4 blocks from my house, and then they would just start freestyling, and then most of them like weren't good, and I knew that I could rap, but like no one else knew that I could rap, and so I would just like randomly freestyle for my friends, and I would incorporate like the things of God into it. And they would just be mind blown because no one knew that I could rap except for me. Like my mom didn't even know. Like when I started rapping, like my mom was even like, "When did you learn how to do this?" Like no one knew. It was like a hidden gift of mine. I would write poetry. I would write a lot of like really dark poetry because of like my feelings towards my dad. So I write really like dark, like morbid poetry because I had so much anger and resentment towards him. So that's kind of like how how like the rapping thing kind of like first entered into my life. But
Were
I
you
was just,
seeing your dad during this time at all? Like, would you visit him? Would he visit you? Like,
Yeah,
what was your
yeah.
relationship like?
Yeah,
I know you said
so-
it wasn't good, but what was it like?
yeah. So I mean, like I would see him like all the time. Like it wasn't like he wasn't in my life. He just wasn't in my life. Like emotionally, spiritually, very verbally abusive, just abusive in like as many ways as he could be. And so by the time I'm a teenager, from like age like 14 to like 19, we're like fist fighting like all the time,
Really?
just like knuckle to knuckle, like going at it. So.
So this was like your way, like your outlet, like music, writing,
Yeah,
poetry, kind
yeah.
of get
So
that
I would
stuff
just
out.
freestyle with my friends, and then one day, I ended up going to a church service, in Kansas. Went to go visit a church in Kansas, and while I'm there, it's a Sunday morning. The pastor's preaching, and he stops in the middle of his sermon, and he's like, "Who brought this young man right here?" And then I'm like, "Who's he talking to? Like, I've never been here. Like, I don't live in Kansas. I live in LA. Like. He's like, "Who brought this young man?" And then my aunt goes like, "That's my nephew from California." And I'm just like, bruh. And
Oh
so
man.
like he's like the Lord gave me a word for you. And I'm trying to see if he wants me to tell you now or after service. And I'm like, after service, please after service, please after service.
Yeah.
He's like, no, the Lord said now. And this is in the middle of his sermon. Homie got to make his like 3-point message, like all this stuff. Homie literally stops his
Wow.
sermon to prophesy over me. And he just like starts speaking, and he's like, like the Lord is showing me that like, you're gonna same thing again. You're gonna be a pastor and a preacher. You're gonna lead thousands of people to the Lord and all this stuff. And then he's like, and the Lord also showed me that you hold back in your worship. And that was definitely me. Like I was the person who was scared to like raise his hands during worship. People like don't believe me now because I'm like the
Yeah.
wildest, loudest dancer at every church service I go to
For sure.
now. But like 17, 18-year-old Mike, like, nah, dude, like I'm scared to even like barely lift my hands up a little bit because I'm thinking people are going to judge me for it. Even though I'm at church where other people are doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm Pentecostal, so like people are like doing the most, they doing jumping jacks and backflips during service. But I'm still thinking if I just slightly raise my hands, I'll be judged. And so like he's saying that, I start like weeping and crying. And then he goes, and this is where the music comes into play. I'm like 18 at the time. And he goes, "The Lord is showing me that you're going to do something with music. I see you on stage doing something with music, but it's not worship. And I don't know what it is.
Wow.
But you're going to do something with music." And I had no plans on like pursuing rap at the time. So I'm like, I don't know what this dude's talking about. Like maybe he's a false prophet, but then like he can't be because like he's hitting it on like everything else. And so like he says that, and then maybe 6, 7 months later, like boom, the music just starts taking off. The Lord puts it on my heart to make a mixtape just for my friends.
Wow.
Like the plan was like, yo, like I got like 20 friends that like they won't go to church, they won't come to youth group, but I know that they respect me. So I know like if I make a mixtape, they'll listen to it and they'll hear the gospel. So I spent, I'm working by this time. I spent $2,000, made a mixtape just to reach my friends, and then God just boom, it just takes off.
Wow.
It just takes
What,
off.
what exactly are you doing it all yourself, or you got with somebody to produce it? Like, what was the actual like?
I had no resources at all.
You did it all yourself.
No, okay. So what I mean by that is I didn't have any resource. I didn't have any producers, anything at all. And so I literally just like started calling anyone that I knew that like made beats, had a studio, anything of the sort, until we were able to just like piece it together. And so we ended up putting out a mixtape. It was only mixed. It wasn't mastered at all. I didn't even know what mastering was. So put out a mixtape, and I'm just like, okay, God, like I'm just gonna put stuff for my friends. And then people, yo, like, you should start doing shows. So then I start calling churches, like, hey, like, can I, perform? Can I perform? Everyone's like, no. And I'm like, all right, cool. Maybe God doesn't want me to do this. Then one day I'm just like, all right, God, like if you want to do anything with this, like you can. And I'm just like, I'm just gonna give it to you. Gave it to him, and boom, it just takes off.
Wow.
One of my first like 3 shows ever was at a massive conference at a Calvary Chapel
Wow.
with thousands of people. And this is like show number 2 or 3.
Wow.
And so God just like lets it just start taking off, and here we are now, like 7 years later, man. I've done like 5 tours. I've opened up for like all the biggest Christian rappers that people look up to, the Christian rappers that like 7 years ago I would like just wanted to get their autograph. Like they're friends of mine now. I do collabs with them. They're hitting me up now and all this stuff. And so just seeing like what the Lord has done, it's been really cool with all the music stuff.
Dude, that's cool. And like, we've been to your shows and stuff, and like I love that, like you're humble in a sense where like you don't care if there's like 10 people there, 15 people there, or you're on the big stages. Like you did give your heart out,
Yeah.
Because I think you did one in, I think it was like Bellflower or something, and it was like kind of like a coffee shop type thing, right?
Yep.
And there must have been maybe like, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 people there, nothing like crazy or anything. But when you got on stage, man, you brought it as if, I remember what you were wearing too and everything. Like you just went for it. Like if there was like a whole, I mean, you didn't care. And I love that because it's like the passion, and just seeing like all the other artists that you connect with and stuff. It's amazing. What's like, as you're on stage, you said the second or third show, you're at like this big thing. Did those words kind of come back? Like, did you think back like, man, that dude prophesied this? Like, did it ever hit you? Like, wow, I'm actually doing this?
Funny enough, it didn't hit me until last year.
Wow.
Last year,
It's like 6 years into it.
Yeah. Last year, I thought back to that moment. I was like, yo, what he said, like, actually happened. Like, this is
crazy.
wild. Yeah, dude.
That's crazy. What's like, because I'm sure there's people that get touched by your music. I mean, I love your stuff. I mean, even like the COVID one you did, like Psalms 91.
Yeah.
Like that was sick.
COVID 91, yeah.
Or COVID 91, yeah, from
Yeah.
Psalms, like I thought that was so cool. What are some of the testimonies you've heard of like your music and stuff? Because I know it blesses so many people, you know what I mean? What are some of the things that kind of stick out to you?
Yeah, dude. So this is the thing that's like kept me going, because when you're, I'm an independent artist, right? I run an independent label with my friends. Shout out to Donald over here.
Yeah.
He's one of the co-founders of our label, SOS Strangers to Society. And so we have our whole team. So like it's myself, it's Hope. So she's like the second
She's
member.
sick.
She's super dope. Yeah. Shout out to Hope. Hope Marin. So she does worship and she sings on like most of our songs and all that stuff. So she's like the second co-leader of Generation Recovery.
And she'll bust out her guitar. I see you guys like
yeah.
singing and stuff.
Yeah.
She's sick.
Yeah. So like we have our, we just have our whole team. And then so like since we've been doing this, man, we just seen God do a lot of stuff. I know a lot of people know that like it used to be me and another person, but we eventually had to like part ways. And so we parted ways, and then Hope came onto the team. And like since we've been doing this, man, like I kid you not, like as an indie artist, like it's hard to keep going. But then when you get testimonies of like what the Lord is doing with your music, it's wild. Like I've had multiple people come to me and say like, I got saved because of your music. We've done altar calls at the end of our shows. I've had people come up to me and say like, that song you did like convicted me, and like I've been doing this, I've been struggling with this, I've been going through that. I had one guy once like come to one of our shows. Actually, I'm sorry. He was at one show once, and he just began to follow us to like all the shows. And like by the time he came to like our 7th show, he's like, dude, like your music saved my marriage.
Wow.
And I'm just like, what?
His marriage is crazy.
Like, so his whole family got really invested into us. So they would show up with like Generation Recovery t-shirts, Generation Recovery hats, the whole family. And I didn't know this, but like their marriage was like hanging on by a thread. And like their daughter became like really impacted by our music. And so God just started doing stuff. And then one day he's like, dude, like I'm still married because of your music. Like my whole family has bonded through what God has been speaking through your lyrics. And so stuff like that, man, is what keeps you going.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And like you said, I mean, it must be hard at times too, you know what I mean? And it's like, people might think like, oh, he's a rapper, that's all he does. So you were working with Amazon like a year ago or something.
Yeah.
I see on your story, you're delivering packages and stuff and everything. Like you just got to make it work, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know you're doing stuff now and everything. Talk to us a little bit about kind of what you're doing right now. It's pretty cool with the youth and everything. Yeah,
man. So people don't like realize that the job or the career of a Christian rapper is wild. Like it's very inconsistent. And a lot of times you'll think of like whoever your favorite Christian rappers are, and you go on their Instagram and they're like posting these like glorious shows of theirs. But what they don't show you is that most of their shows don't look like that. Most of their shows are at a small storefront church with like 20 members. That's what most of the biggest Christian rappers are doing.
Crazy.
But they don't show that stuff. They don't share that stuff. They don't repost it when they get tagged in it.
Speak on it.
And so
Good.
it's pretty wild. And so like I recently put on an open mic with some friends of mine with Jay Cash. Jay Cash is one of like the illest Christian rappers
He's
out here
sick.
in LA. Along with Iron, Peace to Iron. He's an incredible Christian rapper as well. And so we put on a show, and I was sharing to these artists like, hey, so we put on an open mic for up and coming Christian rappers, and we're like, yo, like, if you're getting into this so that you can like go on tour with Lecrae, like, stop it now.
Wow.
Like, cause that's not what your career is gonna look like. Your career is gonna look like you're gonna get booked for like some giant like festival or conference or convention with some denomination, and then the next week you're gonna get booked for like a small church with like 12 youth in it.
Like a youth group,
Like
yeah.
that's what your career is gonna look like, and so, it's wild. It's a lot of stuff that kind of goes into it, but then like you see kind of like where the Lord is taking you and the things that he's doing. And yeah, dude, like, a lot of people don't know, but like even when I met your dad while I was in Bible college, like I was working as a janitor at a church.
Really?
I was doing that for 6 years.
Really?
And I was working full time as a lead steward, as a lead janitor at a large church. That was my full-time job while I was touring with music.
Wow.
And so I was fortunate enough to like have a like work there where they worked with my schedule. So anytime I had to go on tour and go do like shows and stuff, I would just take the time off of work. But that's what I was doing. And so like
Wow, that's
I'm
crazy.
cleaning toilets by day and like rapping by night.
Man, Christian bathrooms better be the cleanest one. We're all
Dude,
servants.
yeah, man.
Come on, man.
Yeah, dude.
Was
So
it pretty dirty and stuff? Picking up
oh
communion
man,
cups?
dude, we're talking a church with 1,500 members. So
So it's a big
it would get
church, yeah.
wild. It would get wild. Yeah, dude. So was doing that, and then like you're talking about, like just was not so long ago doing Amazon, and the Lord was doing a lot of stuff with that. But now, man, like ministry is full time now.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. So you were saying like kind of like what I'm doing now. So I am the youth director at my church. I oversee our entire youth ministry. So all the preaching, all the teaching, all the putting everything together that our youth ministry does, I just kind of check in with my pastors, and then I'm just able to like kind of run with the youth ministry. So doing that as our youth director, and then I am now working full time as well for Young Life. Young Life is a super dope Christian nonprofit, been around for 80 years. And their whole mission is just going to high schools and introducing Jesus to kids that don't know him.
Yeah, that's so
And
cool.
so I get to do that, man. As the area director, I oversee the whole LAX region and all the high schools in that area. So I get to just go in with my team that's with me right now, and we get to just go and love on kids and just share the gospel, hang out, have meals with them. What's dope about Young Life, what we get to do with Young Life is like we get to actually do life with these kids. So like we're not here to like meet them and then preach to them. We're here to meet them, hang out, meet their family, take them to get, ice cream and donuts and Starbucks, and then maybe like a month later start talking to them about Jesus. Like we want to like know you first,
Yeah.
and not just kind of force you into anything. So
Yeah.
it's really
Dude,
cool.
that's so cool. And I mean, the world's changed a lot. I mean, what you say you're 28 right now?
Yeah.
So like you're not that much crazy. It's not like you're this old guy and anything. Like
Yeah.
you're still young.
Yeah.
But like the world's changed a lot since we've been in school.
Yeah.
Or since you've been homeschooled. I know you're like
yeah.
homeschooling and stuff. But like sometimes, because right now I'm 30. What am I? 31. I'm gonna be 32. That's crazy. I'm old. But like I'm like 32. But sometimes like, I'm looking at our youth now. I'm like, man, the times have changed.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy. What are you seeing right now with the kids specifically? What are the things they're kind of struggling with? What's going on with them? What's kind of like the big things you see with them?
Yeah, dude. So I think the biggest thing is that like it's the same thing that's always been an issue. People need Jesus, and that includes young people. A lot of times you'll hear like the older generation talking about like how like bad things are now, how wicked things are now, but it's like things were bad and wicked in your day too.
Yeah.
And it's like each generation like progressively like makes things worse. And so like as a rapper, people are like, oh man, like I love your music because rap music is so bad. But then like I go back and I listen to like rap music in like the 90s, and I'm like, well, the stuff that we permitted like NWA to say is what led to like how bad music is now. Like we were able to like call women outside of their names back then, and so that's why now like the stuff we're able to say is like so much more bold and so much worse and more sinful because we permitted it back then. And so like I get to hang out with kids, and everyone's going through the same thing. Everyone's depressed. Everyone's suicidal. Everyone's lonely. Everyone is doing all these different things. And like people, like these kids just want to know that someone cares.
That's good.
That's what it really boils down to. They want to know that someone cares, that someone sees them. And that's what we're here to do, man. Like,
That's awesome. Yeah, I would say that's a big thing I've seen like with our youth group and stuff like that too. Like talking with some of the kids is like, you know, they talk a lot about mental health now, a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety. Like when I was in school, like I never heard the word anxiety, like ever. I think there was like one kid, but he was like the emo kid, right?
Yeah.
He listened to like emo music and it's like, oh yeah, that guy has like anxiety and depression. But realistically,
It's
we
like
were all going through
yeah.
it. We just never said it and we were never like vocal about it and open. And now it's kind of cool that they can kind of feel open to express it, but at the same time it's crazy to see like how many kids are actually going through it, you know what I mean?
And part of me feels like it's gonna sound weird for me saying this, but part of me feels like it's like the trend.
Yeah,
you know?
I was gonna say that too.
I know some kids that are like 21 that are rappers,
Mm-hmm.
and like I've literally watched them like go from like just making regular like whatever rap music to like all their music is like dark and emo now and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And so part of it is like it's it's almost trendy to
Yeah.
be like depressed now, you know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's also I do think it's also like a demonic attack. You know, I think that's just the thing that's sweeping a lot of Gen Z is like you know the enemy wants to wipe them out, and so like you know have them commit suicide and all these different kind of things. So you know I think that's why these things are so prevalent. I do think it's you know I'm not super supportive of like every ministry. It's like, yeah, like we do like mental health and stuff. Like, cool, like that's cool. But like, are you like actually like loving on kids and like really introducing them to Jesus? You know, because ultimately, like that's what's going to save them anyway. You know.
Yeah.
I think the Bible is the greatest therapist ever. I'm not against therapy. I think therapy is great. I think doctors are great. I think we need those things, but we can't replace that. You know, or we can't replace Scripture by leaning on you know science and stuff.
Yeah, that's good, man. Man, that's so cool. I gotta give it to you, man, for working with kids and stuff, because it could be, you know, it could be hard
It's
sometimes.
stressful.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, it's not just a walk in the
Extremely.
park, bro. Like, you know what I mean? There's gotta be kids that probably test you, that probably have some stuff
All
to
the
say,
time.
whatever, right? Like,
All the time. The worst is when they want to fight you.
have you've had that already? You kind of had situations
yes,
like that?
yes,
Yeah, it's
yes.
crazy. That's wild.
Yeah.
You're just like, you know where I'm from, son?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's crazy. What's been your journey with Restoration Life? Because man, that's an amazing church you guys are connected with. We've had a chance to go over there and hang out on a Friday night and stuff. What was kind of your journey there with Restoration? Like, how'd you get there? What are you doing? Like you said, you're working there now and stuff, but what was your journey getting there?
Yeah, man. Funny enough, Restoration Life is in the city that I live in, and I never knew about them ever, like ever. And so, funny enough, one day I go to a worship night up in Anaheim Hills, and I meet some people that are up there. I'm with Donald, who's my, back here is my producer, and he sees someone that he knows, and we end up connecting with them. And then we're like, oh, like what church do you go to? Like, oh, we go to Restoration Life in Lawndale. And I'm like, I live in Lawndale. Like, there's no good churches in Lawndale. Like, what do you mean you go to church in Lawndale? Like, I know Lawndale. And they're like, no, I was in Lawndale. And so one of them ends up, like, inviting us out to Nightlife, which is our young adult service. And I came, it's like, yo, this is dope. And then, like, I see all these people that, like, I already knew because, like, I just, when you're in ministry, especially, like, in L.A. or in California, you just kind of know everybody.
Yeah.
And so, like, I just see all these people that, like, I knew already. Which is like really cool. And so just kind of kept checking it out and building friendships with them for like a year. It wasn't like, had no intentions on ever like joining the church. But eventually like the Lord made it very clear to me, actually in 2020, like, so just 2 years ago, the Lord made it very clear to me that like, it was time for me to depart from the church that I had been at for the last 8 years. And I didn't know where I was going to go. And so my plan was to just like start like a young adult Bible study out of my house. And Donald back here was actually going to like help me with it. And then Hope, the girl I was seeing with, her husband was going to help me with it and all this stuff. And I ended up actually getting invited to be a guest speaker for Nightlife. So one of the things that the Lord has blessed me to be able to do a lot over the since 2017 is I get to do a lot of speaking as well as like all the music things and stuff. So, I get invited to like a lot of youth groups, a lot of young adult groups. I get to be the camp speaker. I get to be the youth conference speaker and all that kind of stuff. And so Nightlife had actually invited me to be their guest speaker in a couple of months. And maybe like a month before that time came, the Lord had said, hey, like, this is going to be your new church home.
Wow.
And I was like, what? He's like, yeah. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah. I was like, all right. So I ended up, like, leaving my church and went and talked to our lead pastor, Pastor Eddie. He had already just wanted to, like, hang out with me. And so, like, I hung out with him. He's like, man, so, like, where are you going to go to church now? And I'm just like, right here.
Man.
And he's like, what? I was like, yeah, dude. So just right out the gate, my pastor is so amazing. Like, just Pastor Eddie's just, like, such a legendary dude. He's been in ministry for over 20 years and has planted churches and all kinds of stuff. And just right out the gate, he let me, like, hit the ground in ministry and, like, doing the things that, like, I'm passionate about, and gave me the space and the platform to be able to do those things. And eventually I got involved with the youth. And fun fact is that when I left my previous church, I told God that I was done with youth ministry.
He brought you right back.
Like, everything I just told you, but like 2020, I was done with youth ministry. I've been in it for over 10 years already. I'm like, God, like, I'm done. Like, I'm done. I'm not doing this. And so I'm like, I'm going to focus on young adults. I'm done with the youth. I'm done working with youth. I'll still accept certain speaking opportunities.
Yeah.
Like, if they're like a church that, like, I really like or something like that. But other than that, like, I'm not doing youth anymore. And then, of course, my pastor, our campus pastor, Pastor Max, he's like, hey, like, how you feel about youth? I'm just like, they're cool. He's like, all right, for sure. And then, like, 4 or 5 months later, he's like, hey, so what do you think about youth? And I was like, they're cool. He's like, pray about joining youth ministry. I'm like, oh, here it comes. And then I look up, and, like, a month later, he's like, hey, so, like, I want you to join a youth ministry. I'm just like, dude, like. So I ended up joining the youth ministry. My plan was to just stick around for 9 months. It was already a great couple that was leading the youth ministry. So my plan was, I'm just going to come in, teach them what I know, help them with it, and then I'm going to dip after 9 months. And within my first month, I was in my house crying because of some of the things that was going on with these kids. I'm just like, they got me.
Man.
And so now I'm over the entire youth ministry. Now I literally do youth ministry for a living with Young Life. And just 2 years ago, I told God, I am done with this.
That's crazy.
And now every time someone's like, hey, like, come preach for our youth, I just get super excited to, like, pour into Gen Z kids. And now I'm, preaching at chapels now and just all this stuff. I'm just like, how did we get here, dude?
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah, that's your calling, man. You do. And it's crazy that you said you were only there at Restoration for like 2 years, because like when I've seen you there and the way you like champion people, I was telling your guys here, like, bro, the way you like champion people and the way you like support people, I thought you were being in that church for forever. You know what I mean?
That's what most people think.
Like, it's crazy, man.
Years.
And I remember Max, I think one of the Fridays a couple months ago we went, and he called you on stage and stuff, and he just like highlighted you, and he's like, man, you have the spirit of, geez, what did he say? I'm going to mess it up. I forgot what he said. But
He made me cry that night.
But it was like, he said he had the spirit of, oh man, it was like encouragement, basically.
Yeah.
Like, you just encourage people. And like I said, when we led worship and you were like, we could hear you, over my in-ears too, you know what I mean? I don't even know if they had crowd mics, but I could hear you out there. Like, that does something to the person. So, man, if it's so cool I was telling them, I was like, man, if I ever preach somewhere, I'm going to hit you up and be like, bro, here's a 20. Come hype me up, because you encourage people. You're so encouraging. And it's like, you're quiet right now and you're and everything. But when if people can see you in church, man, you're wild. You're jumping up on the chairs and everything. You're just like passionate. And I love it, man. It's so cool. And it's amazing. You've been talking about fried chicken. I've heard you at Restoration Live.
I am a fried chicken. What's the word?
Connoisseur.
Connoisseur. Sounds like dinosaur. I'm a fried chicken connoisseur. I adore it. I believe that eating fried chicken is one of my spiritual gifts. And I believe that God created Chick-fil-A just for me.
Dang, that's heavy right there. You
Fun
heard it
fact,
first.
I worked at Chick-fil-A
Exclusive.
back in 2017.
Did you?
I did.
You got fired because you were sneaking some food out the back, weren't you?
Okay, so since you say that, I didn't like working there, surprisingly. Like, I loved eating it. I just didn't like working there. It was like it was probably the worst job I've ever had.
They said the Spirit of the Lord is there, man.
Not at the one I worked at. Chick-fil-A, yes, but the one that I worked at was
Demonic.
No, yes, it was. Not even kidding. But I did steal some chicken on my last week. I'm not gonna lie. I was like,
You got that
so
Chick-fil-A sauce
I
still?
just, it's like I repented though.
That's funny. I remember one time at restaurants, they were like, "We got tacos after." Kind of started talking. You're like, "What about fried chicken?"
Yep. Yes,
We
sir.
were cracking up, man. That was
Yes,
so funny,
sir.
but that's hilarious, bro. Well, that's cool, man. Thanks for just sharing your story and stuff. I want to kind of transition a little bit because I hit you up on Thursday night to come out. We were kind of going back and forth. And I was like, bro, let's come on the podcast and let's talk about it. So before we get to it, bro, I just want to say that you and I are brothers in Christ.
Yeah.
No matter what's said here, no matter the disagreements, whatever the heck, like, it is what it is. We're always gonna have, and that's the beautiful thing about, you know, being in Christ and stuff. It's like you're gonna meet people with so many different things, but the difference is we're not gonna be, you know, back and forth and be hateful after, holding after. It's just like, okay, we there's certain things that different viewpoints, you know. So I just want to say that first because people would be like, oh, they're fighting and anything. Like, nah, this is my boy. Like,
Yeah, man.
I gave you a black and brown fist bump on
Yeah,
Instagram.
dude.
I didn't know how to do it, so I just put two of them on there. But you know, on Thursday, I want to transition here. So on Thursday, I saw, I don't follow Marcus, but sometimes like I'll see his stuff or whatever. Boom, Marcus popped up and it was about Maverick City. Now, I know that Marcus in the past has done a lot of videos on Maverick City and stuff. So I've seen a couple and everything. So I kind of already knew, you know, what it was going to be about. It wasn't like he was going to be praising them or anything. I knew it was going to be something, right? So I checked it out. And basically the post was, and I'll kind of explain it for those that haven't seen, it was Dante Bo, right? He was on a party bus or something with, you know, friends or whatever. He posted a video of him, you know, singing to like a Bad Bunny song, right? And then the guy Aaron Moses, who leads Maverick City Musica, which is like their Spanish, you know, they're in the back kind of hanging out, basically kind of like partying to it. I don't want to say partying like they're drinking crazy, no, more like hanging out, like having a good time, party bus, right? Like having a good time. So he posted that or whatever, and then Marcus was like, bro, this isn't right, and made this big old post, right? Which, you know, I heard him out, I saw everything, and then what I put on my story was Aaron's response to him, right? So Aaron's response to him was basically like, you know, you're always, you know, talking stuff, you know, you're giving, you know, keep doing it because people are seeing us and watching us and stuff, and kind of like defending what they were doing in the video and stuff. And then Marcus, you know, responds back to him and stuff. And it's just like this back and forth. The part that I posted on my story was like, I thought it was whack, was the response by Aaron. Because the way he made it seem was like, well, people can keep seeing, people are still watching us, you're letting people watch us and stuff. So keep doing what you're doing, talking about us, because you're giving us more, I'm going to say like clout, you're giving us more like just shine. I don't know, whatever word you want to say. That's the part I thought was kind of like out for me, right? So it's funny, I posted that. A lot of people agreed with me and stuff. I didn't get anyone disagree. I'm sure there's people that disagree. No one hit me up, but I love that you were just like, bro, I'm in total disagreement with you. And I love that word because it's like, dude, I can respect people that are straight up. Like, are just like, boom, like telling. That's why I'm like, bro, come on the podcast, let's talk about it. But you're just like, bro, like, I actually loved Aaron's response. I'm in total disagreement with you. Here's why, boom, boom, boom. So we start talking about it. So I'll kind of give my stance, and then I want you to talk about it because I want to see your perspective as well, too.
Yeah, sure.
So my whole thing is like, okay, Christian music, you know, Christian artists, and then, you know, secular music. Now I want to say this. I'm Hispanic, right? I'm Hispanic, I'm Mexican. If Suavemente comes on, best believe, I'm not a huge dancer, but I might grab my wife at a wedding and dance Suavemente, you know? Sure. I hear Earth, Wind, and Fire song, I'm singing the lyrics, you know? So I'm not the type that's going to be like, every, you know, if it's not Christian, like we can't listen to. I'm not crazy like that. But there's certain music when it has certain things behind it, the music videos, the culture around it, a lot of like hip hop, rap and stuff like that. Like I'm just not listening to it because of the stuff that's behind it and stuff. So I just want to make that clear, right? So for me, the way I look at it is like, you know, with Maverick right now, that's the big thing. There's a lot of stuff coming out. My whole thing was just like, I'm in disagreement with any worship leader, Christian artists and stuff, kind of promoting that type of music, not just secular music, specific type of music. And the part that I didn't like either was like Dante was like, some girl commented, right? And she's like, Bad Bunny, question mark. He's like, yeah, like he's really good. And then like, they're like, you know, going back and forth and stuff. So it's like that promotion of that type of music, not even just listening to it, just like, oh yeah, they're good, check them out. So that's where I was coming from. Now, I know you have a different perspective on it, so I want to hear kind of and we'll kind of go back and forth and stuff. But what's your perspective on Christian artists, Christian worship leaders, all that? They're in that, and then supporting specific type of music like that, not just secular music, specific type of rap, hip hop, whatever the case is.
Sure. Yeah. So I want to be careful and cautious with my words. because I know that the Lord holds us accountable for the things that we say. But so shout out to all the Christians who can do strictly Christian music and Christian things, and like they don't kind of listen to certain things that seem a little too wild or whatever. That's not me. Especially me, like being someone who is a Christian rapper. I can't only listen to Christian rap. One Christian rap for me, like I don't get inspired by it. Like I don't like apart from like maybe someone's heart for the Lord. I don't listen to Christian rap and like, oh man, like that's really cool. Like that just inspired me or whatever. It's like for me as a Christian rapper, like I am actively listening to every single secular rapper that is coming through Spotify, Apple Music, through the radio, like all these secular rappers with these really weird names and like profane lyrics. Yes, I listen to those guys, and I listen to those guys because I need to know the culture that I'm trying to reach. And so like for example, like a word right now that people are using is the term mid, and mid kind
Yeah.
of being a thing like, oh, like it wasn't that good. Like
Yeah.
I know mid because I listen to like the current rappers that are coming out, and so I need to know the jargon. I need to know the slang, especially someone who's in youth ministry, preaching at youth churches, working with kids, making Christian rap. Like I need to know what's being done and what's being said, and then that way I can take it and I can flip it and use it to glorify God, right? And so like so that's me, right? But
I'm gonna stop you right there. I have a question on that.
Sure.
Okay, so you're listening to music, but like, let's be honest. Are you like banging it in the whip and like windows down, like this music hits, or is it just like I'm really studying it? Because the way you make it sound is like, oh, I'm kind of studying it. But there's a difference between like, no, this stuff's actually really cool. I'm singing it. I'm catching myself singing it, stuff like that. Like, where are you at with that?
sure, it depends on how much I like the song. So that's just me being like totally transparent. So like
Yeah.
if it's a song where I'm like, yeah, like this isn't a bad song, like I don't agree with like a lot of the lyrics, but as far as like how they like are singing the chorus and how they're presenting the lyrics and their cadences, like yeah, like if it's catchy, then it's catchy. Like good music is good music, but if it's like bad or good, like good music is good music. So it's literally, yeah, it just kind of boils down to that for me. If it's a good song and it's like, so for me it looks like this. I monitor, so me as a believer, me as someone that's in ministry, I monitor how much secular music I'm having as an intake. So the bulk of what I'm listening to throughout the week is worship music. I listen to a lot of Christian music. I listen to a lot of Christian rap and stuff like that. Yes, but I'm also listening, like, I love Kendrick Lamar. He's my favorite rapper for sure. I listen to J. Cole. Like, I have, like, my rappers that inspire what I do are not Christian. And so, like, every time J. Cole or Kendrick drops an album, I'm listening to it to enjoy it, to consume it, to learn it, to study it. But it's also, like, I'm listening because, like, I just like their music and I think they portray it well. And I think in Christian rap, I think we just kind of repeat the same thing a lot of times. And I think that there are secular rappers that just do a better job at conveying a message better than we do. So,
That's good, and I appreciate you being honest because it's like a lot of people get on here and be like, oh no, I only listen to Christian stuff, like, and you're just like, no, I don't. I like this stuff. Like, question that I have is like, all right, like, so I understand that, I get what you're saying. My whole thing is like, and I want to be clear, is like, us as believers, us as Christians, like, I'm not here to like attack Bad Bunny
Sure.
specifically as a person, or Kendrick or any of those guys, like whatever your favorite rapper is, like I'm not, it's not that. My whole thing is like, and I know you know about this because I've heard it on your music, stuff like that. Like we're in a spiritual battle, right? Like it's a spiritual thing. So the way I look at it, and this is the way I see it, and for me, it just makes sense to me, right? So like, it's a spiritual thing. So for me, I'm like, okay, not the spirit that J. Cole or Bad Bunny or Drake, like I said, whoever your favorite person is, if their music glorifies like a certain, like even in like, Dante Bowie's like in his thing, he was like, oh, I can't wait to see what's his name? What's that guy's name? Lil Nas X. Okay, like dude, the bro is like, people are gonna bash it, whatever, but like he's gay and satanic in his video.
Sure.
And doing all that stuff, like a lot of abomination, a lot of stuff, nasty stuff, whatever. You have like the most Christian artist, the I guess the most influential Christian artist supporting the most influential, like,
yeah.
you know what I mean, on the
Sure.
other side. So, and again, it's not an attack on that person, but I look at it in the spiritual sense. Like the spirit that's behind that, we personally should be at war with those things, not supporting it.
Sure.
So that's the whole thing I don't understand, where it's like, if we look at it as a spiritual aspect, because again, the Bible says we don't battle flesh and blood.
Yeah.
Like I said, those guys need Jesus just like anyone else does.
Sure.
Like, I'm not putting myself at any high standard over them, nothing. Like, we all need Christ, we all need grace, but it's the Spirit. So what about that? Because a lot of that music has a certain thing behind it. So how do you get over that, knowing what you know about spiritual warfare, that we battle that stuff?
Yeah. So I have three things that come to mind, and I'll make them like super brief. So the first thing being, let me see, what was I gonna say? We were talking about, what's the last thing we were talking about? We were talking about, just like listening to that kind of music. So for me, as a Christian artist, I don't make music. I make music to convey a message. I'm not so a lot of Christian rappers will tell you that they're Christian rappers so that they can replace secular music. I'm not aiming to replace secular music. I'm aiming to convey a message that is contrary to what's feeding all of my kids. And so, like, my kids like Drake, I like Drake. We're gonna sometimes sing Drake songs together. And then if it's a song that's just like, yo, like, okay, this is going a little too far, like, we're not going to sing this one. Like, if the whole song is about sex, we're not going to sing that song,
But you're not singing it together, but they're gonna listen to it when they're at home by themselves. So what's the response there? You're not singing it together at that moment, but you're supporting an artist, and later on they listen to it.
Yeah, so again, my job for me personally as an artist, as a Christian artist, is I want to bring a different message. So when you listen to my music, you're going to hear the promotion, the biblical promotion and scripture backing of sexual purity, staying away from, alcohol, marijuana, whatever, right? Living a holy and pure life. So you're going to hear those things because that's what I truly believe, and I don't support anything that scripture says not to do. However, going back to what I said earlier, good music is good music. And so, like, for example, like something like, God's Plan or Kiki or something, like, like, I'll play that stuff with my kids in the car. We'll sing it together. But then, like, if Drake has a song where he's just, like, the entire song is about him, like, boning a chick, like, we're not going to play that song. And I'm even going to say, like, hey, like, maybe, like, let's not do that song, but let's do, like, the more, like, the lighter songs and things of that sort, right? So I'm trying to convey a message, and my message is the gospel. My message is following God's word, right? So then when it comes to someone kind of like with this situation with Maverick City, I thought their response was great. So I think there's a difference between like the person and the music that they make. Now, who they are is always going to reflect in the music, right? So if we're thinking of a person like Lil Nas X, like, yes, he is profane and supporting all things that are sinful. That does not discount the fact that he has a God ordained gift to create good music.
A talent, yeah.
He has a talent. He can make music because God gave him the ability to make good music. What he does with the music is between him and God. But if he makes a good song, he makes a good song. And so, as a Christian artist, and if I'm thinking about like people like Dante and Maverick City and stuff like that, like, for them being at the level and the caliber that they're at within the music industry, I'm sure they're getting inspired. Like, they're watching the Lil Nas's and they're watching the Bad Bunnies and like, yo, like, how can we take that and bring that same vibe and that same energy, but flip it and use it in a way that's going to glorify God? So, like, I'll go to like a J. Cole concert and I'll get super inspired. Like, man, like, okay, how can I take those same principles? I don't get inspired by Lecrae, but I do get inspired by J. Cole. I go to a Lecrae concert and like, that was cool. I go to a J. Cole concert, I come back home with ideas. And so I'm watching them, I'm getting inspired by them because they're just making good stuff. I don't support their sin, but they're making good content. And so I'm taking that. And so I think that's even the place that a lot of these artists are coming from. Again, like, I'm friends with like some of like people's favorite Christian rappers, and I know that they have the same viewpoint as me because we've talked about a lot of this stuff. And for all of us, it's always the same thing. Like, I like their music, like, and if they're songs that's just super vulgar and super profane, like, I'm not playing that in my car. But like, I'm listening to their songs that I do like, and I'm drawing inspiration. And if it's just a good song that makes you want to jump and dance, and it's a good song that's gonna, like,
Talk about the spiritual aspect of it, though.
Yeah. So when it gets into the spirit, I think a lot of times within church culture, I think when we use scriptures. Like, so if you look at like the posts with Marcus Rogers and all that stuff, you're gonna see Christians like quoting like, oh, like what does light have to do with darkness? And you're gonna see all these things. So most of the time we're using scriptures completely out of context. Like that has like most of the scriptures that we're using has nothing to do with the context. Now what we do see is I look at Jesus and I thoroughly believe, based on what I see, the character of Jesus in scripture, I think that if Jesus was, like, it's going to be kind of funny, but I think if Jesus would have been like born in today's world,
Jesus ain't bumping Drake, bro.
as like a black man, I think Jesus would be at a Drake concert.
No, bro, that's out.
I
That's
think
out,
he would be.
bro. That's out.
And I think the reason for that is because of what we already saw him doing in scripture, right? We saw him, everyone loves talking about Jesus with the sinners and this and that and all
He
this
would be
kind
there,
of
but
stuff,
he
right?
for sure wouldn't be like.
I'm not saying he would be singing and all this stuff, but he would be there. I think he would be backstage with them.
Yeah.
And he would be loving on them. He would be in there. And so like that's my approach, and that's honestly like what I believe to it. And so I don't think that just because someone is out and they're living a like if they're like actively pursuing a sinful lifestyle, but they make music, I do not believe that the demonic things that they're doing is going to like pour into their music unless they're making music to pour the demonic things that they're doing into it. I believe that wholeheartedly.
I was so on Thursday night, actually after our service here, I went to shout out to Raising Cane's. They got an amazing chick. You like Raising Cane's?
Of course I do.
Raising Cane's is sick. I love their bread.
Yep.
Shout out to Raising Cane's. All right, so Brent's Raising Cane's. There's a kid here that's been coming. He's 21, 22, pretty young and stuff. Literally just came to Christ like within I would say the last like 3 weeks, right? So he was here, and so I've been seeing him kind of on Thursday. Hey, come eat with us. Went to go eat with him. So he's there and he's new, bro. We haven't. People be like, oh, you indoctrinated him. We haven't had any conversation. The first time I'm talking with him, and we start talking and stuff, and he's like, hey, bro, like I'm just trying to find new music and stuff like that, right? So he's like, but I'm confused. He's like, man, I'm just so confused right now and everything. And I was like, yeah, just take it slow. You're new in Christ and stuff. Like everything will start coming and stuff. He's like, I'm confused about the music. And I was like, why? He's like, well, have you heard the new like Eminem and Kanye and someone else?
Yeah.
Who's the other one? Do you know who the other artist is?
I don't remember,
I
but
can't
yeah,
remember.
I know they.
But it's like a new song, gospel.
They got like the number one like gospel song right now or whatever.
And he's like, he specifically was talking about like Eminem. He's like, but I don't get it. Like, is Eminem Christian? I was like, I don't know. I was like, I haven't heard of that. Like, I haven't heard of him doing that or anything. I was like, he's like, but yeah, he's like, but he goes, because I went on his Instagram and he was like cussing just this morning and saying a bunch of stuff. But then he's like, I'm just so confused. And when he said that, I could have easily been like, yeah, that's demonic. That's not. I didn't hit him with any of that. I was just like, well, bro, what is your spirit telling you?
Yeah.
Like, what do you see a difference? Because you've changed. This kid is like coming from crazy stuff, got shot at, just a crazy lifestyle. This guy's crazy in the streets. He's completely changed. So I just told him, I was like, when people are like, they get filled with Christ, it's a new creation. So you got to ask yourself, not just him because he's in the limelight, he's an artist and famous, anybody, like if they come to Christ, are they the new creation? Like you should see you should see some sort of change. Sure. I said, and maybe you can use that as your guide, So I didn't tell him like Eminem's demonic. I didn't tell him any of that. I said, your spirit will tell you, you know what I mean? Yeah. See the change. Yeah. Because he's like, I'm confused about him. He's like cussing stuff this morning, all this stuff, whatever. So things like that, like I just feel like when we kind of are on the fence of like, oh, we can listen to Drake, but certain songs, well, we can listen to this guy, but certain songs we cannot. I just feel like it's like that confusion comes in because this literally is I'm giving you a real example of this kid's like, I'm confused about Christianity right now because he says he's a Christian, but he's doing this. He says it's this mixture. And for me, I do see it as like a black and white. And I feel like this is I'll explain my viewpoint. Like I'm very passionate about this because I'll say it like this. We have Christians right now in China, and we literally a lady came here and gave us an exact testimony. There's Christians in China right now, this like underground churches, like in houses, like, you know what I mean? Brothers and sisters all through these hundreds and hundreds of years of Christianity have been beheaded, tortured. You look at the Old Testament, the New Testament, getting stoned, all these things. Like, for me, I look at it as like Christianity is not a game for me. Like I just something that I don't play with because I'm like people have given their life for this. For us to be here, especially us to have platforms, or even if you're an artist and stuff, to be playing and kind of messing around and doing all this stuff. Like, oh, it's cool. I want to see Lil Nas X. For me, it's a slap in the face, honestly, to Christians that have given their life for this, that have been dedicated to this, that have given everything. Like for me, I'm like I'm sold out for this, and it's like. that's why I take it so personal, because
Yeah.
it's like it means something very serious
Right.
to me.
Yeah.
And I look at, like, prophets in the Old Testament and everything. It's like they were very straight up. And as far as Marcus specifically, like, I understand where he's going with it. Now, do I think every video of him needs to be exposing and calling people out? There's some people that do that. I'm not that type that's going to be every single one, but I can see where he's coming from, where he's just like, we need to get back to like biblical
Yeah.
Christianity. And I'll just say this, my last point, when it comes to Christians right now, it's like, Christianity is kind of cool right now. It's kind of cool to talk about Jesus and God as an entity or as something that gives you power. But when you start telling people that you're a Bible believing Christian, that you're for pro-life, that you don't support LGBTQ, that you believe the Bible, that you're not going to compromise and watch rated R movies and go to this, all these different things, or be listening to like all this different music and stuff, then you're out. Like, they're not going to mess with you anymore, because they're just like, well, we don't like that type of Christians. We like the Christians that are just loving and accepting. So for me, like I said, the reason why I'm so passionate, I just feel, is because the confusion, and then the second thing is, like, people have really died for this faith. It's for us to be messing around and joking with it and leading people, like, it leads people astray, I feel, at the end of the day. So, like I said, I love the back and forth and stuff, but that's just why I'm just so passionate about it. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I think that's good. So, I think one thing that's really cool. So well, before I say that, I remember something else I was going to say. So going back to Aaron's response to Marcus Rogers, and he was talking about like, hey, like, you're building your career on bashing other believers, but keep it coming, because like you're putting more eyes on us.
Yeah.
I thought that was a terrific response, and the reason why I think that is because, yes, they are Christian artists, right? They make Christian music, but that is also their career. And so at the end of the day, they need and want as many eyes on them as possible. This is also how they're feeding their families. This is a business for them. And no matter how people want to say it, like, it boils down to the same thing. Like, a church at some degree has to also function as a business, right? That's why we have treasurers and we have an elder board and we have all this stuff, right? And so, like, for them, like, they make Christian music, but
one's compromise and one's like ministry, bro. Like,
Sure.
I think there's a difference there. If you're gonna compare church to, like, well, they got to feed their family, because churches, there's bills that need to get paid,
Right.
lights and stuff.
So-
but you're talking about compromising to feed or to be able to be accepted.
Yeah, so I don't see any
there a line there?
so I don't see any compromising taking place. I think Aaron's response is, you're sending, so it's like, you ever heard like the saying, like, there's no such thing as bad publicity? I think that's what Aaron was getting at. Like, you doing this is sending people to check us out, and then some people are going to go and they're going to go do their research, and they're like, oh wow, like, Maverick actually isn't at all what all the naysayers have been saying. They actually are bearing the fruit. And I think it's even great for them to do that kind of stuff, because they're at such a level, they're able to minister to people like a Bad Bunny. They're able to minister to people like, I don't have access to, like, I'm not in any rooms with Bad Bunny and Lil Nas X, but I bet you Maverick City probably is. I bet Dante Bo is probably at BET or, whatever.
Would you agree with this? I love that you're
circles.
saying that. Would you agree with this, though, that right now, like I said, Jesus and everything, it's like popular right now. Would you agree, though, that, because this is the way I see it, when you're so close to just being like cool, I feel like there's never a really big transition. When you think about Kanye West, you think about all these people that are like, oh, I'm a Christian now. I never see a full, real kind of like they really, really changed, because like specifically with Kanye, right? So you're in Sunday service and all of a sudden he gets a divorce and he's with these girls and stuff like that. Like, there's never a real full conversion. The way at least what's being put out, what we see, we never know what's going on behind back doors. But I feel like what you're saying, like, when we are kind of like accepting, well, we're never going to be in a room with them. But I feel like if they don't see a big change between, like, let's say you're the Christian and I'm the artist, secular artist. If I don't see a big change in you where you're really like different, we're almost kind of close, but you just believe in God, then there's no real reason for me to fully change, because we're pretty similar. We like the same thing. We're doing the same thing. Why do I need to change then if we're really close? We're very similar. You get what I'm saying? But then I get what you're saying. You don't want to be too far out and too different that you're never going to be in the room with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a balance right there, right?
Yeah.
There's like that line.
Yeah. So again, I think what it comes down to is I don't believe that it's compromised at all. So I'm gonna give you two examples, one for myself and then one kind of going back to them is, they're in that space. They got millions of followers. They got billions of people listening to their music. They're in the rooms with the biggest celebrities and all that kind of stuff. And in my head, I'm thinking like, wow, like, what if Bad Bunny was told like, hey, like, the biggest, because hands down, Maverick is the biggest name in Christian music right now. And so, like, what if someone was to tell Bad Bunny? Because I'm sure someone in Bad Bunny's circle is probably like Christian. It might just be like his photographer or whatever, right? What if someone in Bad Bunny's circle is like, hey, like, the biggest band in Christian music was just like jamming out to one of your songs at their friend's birthday party? What if Lil Nas sees that interview of Dante Bowes like, yo, like, every Christian right now, and I love that. And honestly, as someone who considers myself to be an evangelist, I would have done Dante's same response. Like, if I would have been out there and I was at his level, and the interviewer said, "Who are you looking forward to seeing?" I would have intentionally thought, "Who's the most sinful artist that's probably here that I can think of?" And I think they make good music, and I'm gonna say that name too, because Lil Nas X has every Christian tell him how horrible and how he's going to hell and all this stuff. But then here's the biggest artist in Christian music saying he's actually looking forward to seeing my set. Like, you don't know what that's going to do if Lil Nas gets to see that. That's a seed of evangelism.
You don't think it's a seed of like, oh, what I'm doing is actually pretty good, then I don't have to change?
I don't see it as that at all. I think that gives Lil Nas an opportunity to be like, wow, like, you know that, like, I'm putting all these gay things in my music. You know, I'm literally putting like satanic symbols in my music, but you still see me as an artist. You're not supporting what I do, but you see me as an artist. Hey, like, talk to me about your version of Jesus. Like, I want to hear about that, you know? And so to me, that's planting a seed of evangelism. And I would do the same thing. Like, I have friends that are secular artists, but they make good music. And so I share their stuff on my page. I'll edit out the part where like they say the F word or something, but I'll share their page. I'll share their songs on my social media. And then guess what they do in return? I get a DM from them 4 months later. Hey, dude, can you pray for me? I know you're pretty close to God. And so I'm looking at, so like my life verse is this, and this is why I believe and say all the things that I do is, you know, you go to 1 Corinthians 9 in the summer, like I think it's like verses like 17 to like 22 or something like that. And Paul says, be all things to all people that you might reach a few. And so that is me. I am always willing to adjust who I am, not compromise. I'm willing to adjust who I am and what I do to win a soul, not compromise the gospel, not water down the gospel, but I'm willing to dress different, talk different. I'm willing to, like, whatever culture, like if I'm going to go move to, you know, Japan, I'm not going to dress the way I dress right now. I'm going to dress in a way that's relevant to their culture, right? And so, like, I'm going to go out there. So when I saw that from Dante, I'm like, wow, like he's ministering to Lil Nas X right now. No one else is going to be able to minister to him. But him putting out that post, and then all the Christians are like sharing it, it's a good chance that like at some point Lil Nas is going to see it. And
You really think so?
Yeah, and that's going to minister to him. Whether if it brings him to Jesus or not, that I don't know.
Yeah.
And so, and then again, going back to the Aaron things, like, yeah, like they're running a business. They're running a Christian business, so they need eyes on them for like what they want to be able to do and for them to keep feeding their families and have a sustainable music career. Like, I love what Naomi from Maverick City said recently. Like, she was in an interview with Sadie Robertson, and she was saying like no music career is going to last forever. Like everyone's music career is going to die at some point. And so she was like, I'm just going to keep running this as long as I can. And Maverick City knows this. They know that they're at the top now, and like 4 years from now, they might get replaced by another worship band, you know, and then another worship band, and then another worship band. So right now, they're just driving home. They're stacking up their bags. They're trying to feed their family and get their security in
At the
financially.
sake of compromise, though, is crazy for me.
Well, again, I don't believe it's compromise at all.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're going to disagree. And we could be here all day back and forth.
Yeah.
We're going to have that disagreement. And that's when we can just chalk it up to be like, bro, I disagree. You had disagree. Okay, we're going to get disagrees because I'm calling it compromise, bro,
and
to
that's
be honest.
fine. Yeah.
And you're like, no, it's not. It's a way of reaching it, which I get what you're saying, but then I'm just like, I don't know. It's perspective, bro.
I'm thinking back to like, you know, scriptures of like, you know, some, you know, only eat meat for the Lord, some only eat vegetables for the Lord. And when I read verses like that, and when I'm reading scriptures about like people who do this for God and people who do that for God, or, you know, some things, you know, like is, you know, like we talk about, I'm paraphrasing this, I'm letting you know that I'm paraphrasing this, but the scripture that essentially saying like, what's a sin for one person may not be for another person, right? And so when I'm thinking of these types of scriptures, I'm looking at in the space of like music, right? And so like for at least for this conversation. So if you go to like Young Life, for example, if you go to a Young Life camp, you're not hearing Lecrae. You're hearing Lil Nas, you're hearing Drake, you're hearing the Migos, but you're going to hear the clean versions because they're an
But what about when they
outreach.
go home, bro?
They're an
That concerns me.
they're
What
an
about when they go
outreach
home though?
based ministry.
Yeah.
And so it's about drawing them in. I recently, and this made some Christians uncomfortable that was there. I recently went to a youth conference at a church that is crushing it in youth and young adult ministry right now, crushing it. I went to their conference, packed it out with believers and non-believers. They had a ton of non-believers at this thing. When you're just chilling, they were playing secular music with like lyrics that you would never hear in a church. And I knew why they were doing it, but I just wanted to know anyway. So I went and talked to one of their leaders, like, hey, like, how come you're like, you didn't even like blur it out like that line or whatever. And he says, because we understand that we have all these people in our community that aren't Christian. They're not going to understand Christian music. And so they had them come in, feel comfortable first. Then when they started playing all the Christian rappers when the event actually started. And then from there, they went into like a 30-minute worship set. And all these young people who didn't know Jesus got saved. But it was a bait. And so so I see it the same way. So if you think,
So you think that so they'll leave, so they won't listen to the secular music anymore? You're saying that's only in the very beginning, and then after they get to a point, they're like, oh, we're not going to listen to this stuff anymore.
so that comes down to a discipleship thing. I'm not here to make any of my kids stop listening to secular music. I'm here to disciple them. And so like if
What
like,
about my kid that comes to me? He's like, bro, I'm confused. I have confusion.
then I'm gonna say, hey, like go have that conversation with your leader, with your pastor.
No, I'm saying, what if he comes to you? He's like, I got confusion because it's cool to listen to this, but it's not. But then,
So
okay,
here's
but then
exactly what I do.
listen to
'cause
another Drake song and it's lust and it's this and it's that and it's partying and all this stuff. But you're telling me not to. But my pastor says don't do it. But then now the music it's confusion.
So this is when you're gonna walk a kid through the scriptures. So I literally get this all the time, right? So like if I have a kid in my youth group, he comes to me and he's like, hey, like I'm in love with Jesus now. I want to run after God with everything that I have. And like what I do with this music thing, because I really like listening to the Migos, but like, can I still listen to them and listen to Lecrae or whatever? And then that's where I'm gonna sit with them. I'm gonna say like, hey, you have to now filter the music that you're listening to. So like if Migos has a song that's about sex and partying, don't listen to that one. If they got a song where there's like a few like lyrics that maybe shouldn't have been there here and there, but like the overall song like isn't that terrible, and you want to listen to like a clean version, because that's what they do at Young Life Camp. They play the clean versions of secular songs. And so that's what I tell my kids to do.
It's not better just to be like, hey, don't even go down that road? Instead of like, don't move this pothole, don't hit this pothole, watch for this bump right here, just don't even go down that road? You don't think that's a better thing to tell our kids?
For me, no. For me, no. I think, again, that goes down to the discipleship process, right? So, like, I might tell a kid that, right? And then you might tell a kid, like, hey, like, don't listen to Migos at all. Listen to Generation Recovery instead.
Yeah, come
like,
on.
You know, like praise God, like, that's dope. But that's not going to be my response. And then I also tell them, where's the conviction that you feel the Lord leading you to? So literally last night, and my leaders are here with me. Last night, one of my youngest leaders, he's 17, and he came to us yesterday. And he's like, hey, like literally the same exact conversation. He's like, hey, like sometimes like, so he's Hispanic, and he's like, I don't know what to do with my music sometimes, because like I love God, and like he's like crazy on fire for the Lord right now. But he's like, but I'm also like Hispanic. And so in my culture, like we have like all these songs. And so sometimes like when I'm hanging out with my friends, like, I don't know, like, can I play, you know, like this certain like, you know, secular artist? Or should I just only play like this, whatever? And so we told him like, where's your conviction at? Like, if you feel the Lord, and again, this goes down to like the meat and vegetable thing. If you feel that the Lord is saying like, hey, like for what I want you to do, I don't want you listening to secular music, then don't listen to secular music. If you know it's a stumbling block for you, right? So like for me, I struggle in my day-to-day life to just stay like sexually pure. That's something that I'm actively like fighting against, right?
Yeah,
in my
music's
walk
not
with
going to
the
help,
Lord.
bro. That's all I'm
So
saying.
if I'm listening to music that is constantly promoting sexual sin, I know to avoid those kind of songs.
But you're a 28-year-old, but so you expect a high school kid, a kid in junior high, to have enough to be like, oh, I'm not going to listen to certain songs.
Again, that boils down to discipleship. Are you so like? And I don't mean it's like
No, I'm saying when they're at home, like they're like, we could tell them one thing here, we can bleep
Sure.
out the words here, we're only going to play 3 songs from Drake, not all 10. But when he goes home, you don't think he's tapping into all 10?
I'm encouraging him to wrestle with it through the scriptures. I think we have to learn how to actually disciple people. We don't disciple anymore. We create Christian kids in a Christian culture, and we tell them to do all these things and don't do all these things, but we're not discipling people. If you are properly discipling your kid, then because they're gonna go and do what they want to do at the end of the day.
That sounds like the high school kids the high schools pass out free condoms, right? Because they're gonna go have sex anyway. Let's just provide it, or like the needles, like we're just gonna give clean needles out because they're gonna do it anyways, type of thing.
So I don't see it as that. But I do believe that I do think that that's better than just like having kids do whatever, right? Like as far as like morality goes and consequences. But I think it goes down to discipleship. Are you properly discipling your kids? My kids that are in my youth group, they know to not listen to certain types of music because I've discipled them a certain way. They know that they know that if I don't know, if Lil Yachty drops an album, they know, okay, I can rock with that song. I can't rock with that song. I can rock with that song, not that song. And they also know how to filter how much of it they're consuming. And so I've raised up my kids to where they're listening to worship music all the time. But they also, like, if they're going to go to the gym and they want to work out and they want to listen to like a Lil Yachty song or something like that, like, then they know, like, cool, like, that's my workout music, you know? And so, again, are you discipling your kids? Not you necessarily, but like, are we discipling our kids? If we're discipling, if we're properly discipling, because every church is going to be different, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I might have a kid who's a Young Life kid. He comes in, he hears the clean version of Lil Nas, he gets saved, falls in love with Jesus, and then he go join somebody's church in Inglewood, and his leaders in his church saying, hey, like, don't listen to secular music at all. Then cool, like, dope, like, rock on, like, do your thing. And then if later on in your walk with Jesus, you like start to wrestle, and that's the same thing that we saw with Lecrae, right? So like Lecrae, like, if you go all the way back, I've been listening to Lecrae since like 2007, 2006, something like that. So if you go all the way back to when Lecrae came out, he'll even tell you now, like, he was fresh in his faith. He had just gotten saved. He went to seminary, was learning theology, and he was regurgitating everything that he was learning from his professors, his pastors, and his leaders. Then he got older and it's like, oh, like, these are good practices, but they're not necessarily sinful things for me to say or do or whatever. And so then we saw a shift in his music. And then he shifted again because it's a growing developmental
To me,
process.
though, it's that confusion, that deconstruction. A lot of artists are in that. A lot of Christian artists, deconstruction.
Sure.
That came from confusion. That came from, like, I could not. I don't know, bro.
We gotta give
it's
people space to wrestle, though.
But you're gonna. I just feel like it's a dangerous place, bro, to lead people. To be honest,
I feel
deconstruction is huge right now, bro.
Absolutely.
And it comes
Massive.
from that line is blurred. That line is like, we can kind of do, we can kind of not, some this, some that. I think it's dangerous, bro. Just to be honest. Like I said, we can go back and forth. We're gonna go back and forth all day.
No.
But
And I think one of the reasons for that is because we're in a culture now where we are actually learning to read and understand the Bible. Like, theology is becoming more prevalent. We're hearing terms like hermeneutics and exegesis more than ever before. And so, like, Christians are actually starting to really study the Bible now versus just like being told like biblical principles and being told like whatever their pastor says and living it out. We're learning how to actually read scripture in context, right? And so now, like, when I was growing up, we were all taught drinking alcohol was a sin. Like, even like a cup of wine on your birthday was a sin. Now Christians are educated. They understand how to read the Bible and how to understand in its context. And now it's regular to have Christians like, a couple of nights a week when I get off from work, I'll have a glass of wine.
Yeah, just like don't get drunk or whatever.
You know, like we understand that now. But before it was like, no, don't drink at all. Like if you have even like the smallest bit of liquor in you, like you're going to hell. And that's what I grew up believing. And so now, like, people like knowledge. They're hungry for knowledge. They're hungry for the truth of God's word. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you what the Bible actually says. I'm not here to talk about spiritual warfare. I'm not here to talk about, is the homosexual lifestyle that this artist is living out, is that pouring out to their music? I don't know. What I do know is what the Bible made black and white. What I do know is what Scripture makes clear. When you start talking about spiritual warfare and all that kind of stuff, then it's really easy to put what you think and what you feel and what your convictions are.
But you talk about it in your
song.
You literally said that. You literally said this in your songs, though.
Yeah.
You talked about spiritual warfare.
Yeah. No, for sure, because spiritual warfare is real. But when I'm talking about spiritual warfare, I'm talking about wrestling with the flesh. I'm talking about demonic oppressions. I'm talking about all those kind of things.
You don't think that stems from you? You don't think music has a role in that?
I think it can.
And especially what Satan's assignment was in heaven?
I think it can. Well, so that's a whole other thing.
That's a good one right there, huh?
That's a whole other thing because, like, if you, that's a whole other. I got a lot to say about what historically we've been told was Satan's role in the Bible. I gotta say, but we'll get.
We gotta do part 2 on this one, bro.
We'll do part 2.
We need a part 2 on this one.
We're gonna have to break down some theology and
bro.
all that
I
stuff.
appreciate you. I really do, because you're here rocking with me. You could have said no to this, because people probably thought it was gonna be a nice little episode. We're gonna talk, which is great, bro. I appreciate you coming on.
Dude.
But I knew what we were gonna get into because everything, and it's talking about Marcus and stuff and everything. I knew it was gonna get, but I just appreciate you coming and just rocking with me, because people need to see stuff like this. People need to see different perspectives, because a lot of times on a video you won't see this. You'll just see Marcus saying his thing. You'll just see Maverick City saying their thing and everything. But it's never a let's sit down, let's talk about it, let's go back and forth, and we can agree to disagree. Like, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and if I can say something, I honor and love and respect you for the fact that you were willing to do this, knowing that I was in a different, like, that I don't agree with you, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I'm really
in complete disagreement too.
Yeah. No,
I love it, bro.
for real.
I love it. I'm telling you,
and
man,
I still am. I'm still in total disagreement with everything that you
Same
just
here,
said,
bro.
and
Same here.
that's okay. Like, that's super okay, because, like, I'm really into, like, theology, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, you'll get people who, like, so let's just talk about, like, salvation real quick. You have, like, the Calvinists, and they're making all their points for Calvinists, and you have the Arminian that's making all the points for Arminianism. You never see them interview each other and just have a conversation. That you don't see. You'll see the Calvinists bashing the Arminian. You'll see the and whatever it is when it comes to doctrine, like post-trib, you'll see the post-trib bashing the pre-trib and all that kind of stuff. But you never see them like, hey, like, let's talk about this. Let's bring you on our podcast. Let's do this and have a discussion. You see people from their opinion saying, yeah. And so, of course, then your comment section gets flooded with, yeah, you're right. Amen. Yeah, he's wrong. She's wrong. But you don't see this. Like, you're my brother. Like, at the end of this, like, we're still going to hang out. You're going to support me. I'm going to support you.
Bro, let the record show that you call
stuff,
Marcus a Judas, bro, in the comments
He
section.
is. Marcus Rogers is a Judas.
No.
He is a Judas, and if you support him, stay away from me.
Oh, man.
Oh,
my gosh. Should
Let
I
it
leave?
be heard
Should I
right
leave?
here.
Should
Let
I
it
walk
be
out?
heard, Marcus, and whenever I meet you, I'll let you know.
All right, well, I didn't tell you this, but I got a little surprise.
Okay.
Marcus, why don't you come out, bro?
Bring it in.
Oh, man.
I would love that. I would love that.
Imagine
I would
Marcus just
love
walked
that.
out right now.
I would love it.
Nah, bro, I appreciate you. Like I said, man, we can just go back and forth, but I love it, man. But I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much, sharing your thing. Where can people connect with you? Where can people find your music? Bro, you make some sick music, fire music. I was talking with your boy right here and everything. Like, dude, it's good music. Where can they reach you at? Where can they find you?
Yeah, man. So all the music is gonna be listed under Generation Recovery. And then if you want to connect with me on Instagram, it's Generation Recovery Music. But yeah, if you go on Spotify, Apple, anything, just type in Generation Recovery. You'll find us right there.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys, man. Catch a show, listen to his music, check his stuff out. They're sick. If you can find a Friday night, if you guys are anywhere in the Harbor area, LA area, go check out their church. Sick, amazing church. They have so much stuff. They just had Miles Minnick. They did a whole show. It was sick. So make sure you guys check him out, tap in with him. I appreciate you, man, for coming on.
Yeah, man.
I really do. So see you guys in the next episode. Don't forget to comment, like this video, subscribe, and share it with somebody. But we'll see you guys on the next one. Have a good one.
Let's run it.
Thanks, bro.